Hi students, in the previous two videos I have discussed with you about collecting banker and paying banker. To make these topics a little more simple and easy to understand, I'll go through these concepts once again. So while I was discussing with you about collecting banker, I had also discussed with you about what a clearing house is, what is conversion, and who is a holder for value, why is bank considered as a holder for value, and so on. So I had shown you all these slides, and here in this slide where I had told you about the role of a collecting banker, I had told you that the bank accepts money from account holders. This is in the form of various deposits. It could be current accounts, savings bank account, time deposit account, which is the fixed deposit account, or it can be in recurrent bank account. The banks also collect money as agents of account holders. With respect to this, I had told you that if the bank is collecting money as per the standing instructions given by their customers to collect interest or dividend or rent, then the bank is said to be collecting money as an agent of account holders. Thereafter, I had told you that the bank collects check as an agent of account holder, which means that that point is not mentioned over here, but I had told you this in the previous video, and the meaning of this is the bank collects the check as agent of account holder, which means that the bank will accept the checks given by their customer and then send it out to the paying banker and collect the proceeds from that bank and thereafter credit the customer's account with that money. And the last point here is the bank purchases check of account holder, either as a holder for value or holder in due course. In this capacity, the bank makes the payment before the actual realization of the check. So let me again explain to you who a holder for value is. If you look back at your notes, I have already given you the meaning and definition of holder for value. But with respect to this point, let me give you an example once again. Suppose a customer is having an account with Canara Bank and the customer's name is Mr. A, and he presents an open check, that is an uncrossed check of Bank of India for rupees 10,000 in Canara Bank. I repeat again, A is having an account in Canara Bank and he is giving an open check of Bank of India for 10,000. This check he must have received from someone else and therefore he is giving it to his own bank. Now here bank becomes an agent for collection. That means Canara Bank collects the check and presents it to Bank of India. Bank of India is the paying banker. So, and presents it to Bank of India for receiving the amount of the check and crediting that respective customer's account. So when a bank sends the check to the paying banker so that they receive the money and the account of the customer is credited, we say that the bank acts as an agent for collection of check. Then what is the meaning of purchasing check of account holder as a holder of value? Now there are times when suppose a customer presents an open check to the bank and he collects the value of the check from the bank. You know, open checks can be encashed at the counter. So any person can go to any bank and collect the value of the check from the bank. In such case, if the customer does such a thing, he'll be collecting the checks for himself and the bank would be paying the amount to the customer. Since in this case, the customer is paying the money of the check to the customer across the counter and in turn receiving the check. Therefore, we called the banker to be the holder for value. Bank has collected the check and therefore is called the holder for value. Even in the case of crossed checks, sometimes the banks pay money to the customers before the actual realization of the check. So if the customers are in urgent need of money, and in such rare cases the bank may be generous enough to pay the money, or they may purchase the check for a discounted value, which is called as discounting of check. Now in both the cases, the bank becomes a holder for value. In other words, the bank becomes the legal possessor of the instrument for value. So I hope you have understood this. In the case of open checks also, the bank who pays the money of the check to the person who is withdrawing the money becomes the bank becomes the holder for value. And even in the case of cross checks, if the bank pays before the realization of the check, or the bank decides to purchase the check for a discounted value, the banker is considered as a holder for value. Now, what is the right of a bank as a holder for value? Now, if the bank becomes a holder for value, then the bank can retain the money of the check that they have already paid to the customer. That means that when the check actually becomes due for payment, the bank can collect the money which they have already paid to the customer. And suppose the check gets dishonored, the bank can collect the value of the check from the drawer as well as the endorsers. So these are some rights that the bank has got as a holder for value. Now, what are the liabilities of the bank as a holder of value? If the check which is sent for collection has a forged endorsement, that is, it is fraudulently endorsed, and the bank has collected this check, then the bank becomes liable to the real owner of the check. Also, if the check which has been collected has a defective title or has no title at all, whether it is crossed or uncrossed, the collecting banker is going to be liable to the real owner of the instrument. So therefore, banks have to take a lot of precautions when they become holder for value. That means they have collected the check and they have made the payment on the check before it is due, especially with respect to cross checks. And even with open checks, if they have collected the check and they have made payment on that, the bank has to take a lot of precaution. So what are the precautions that the bank has to take as a holder for value? First and foremost, whenever a check is presented to the collecting banker, the bank should obtain a consent letter from the person who is giving the check for collection. Now, this consent letter must contain or mention that the amount of the check shall be reimbursed to the bank if the bank has already received this amount. So the amount will be reimbursed to the bank if the customer has already received the amount, in case the check is dishonored. So I repeat this. First and foremost, the collecting banker should obtain a consent letter, CONSCNT, consent letter, from the person who is giving the check to the bank for collection. And this consent letter must mention clearly that for the amount taken from the bank in advance on the instrument, the person receiving the amount will reimburse the amount back to the banker in case the check gets dishonored. The second precaution that the bank has to take is they should also obtain a letter when a check has a defective title and is presented for collection. So the letter should contain the consent of the presenter. That means the person who is giving it to the bank for collection. The letter should contain the consent of the presenter that the amount will be paid to the real owner when the value has been already collected by the presenter of the check and dishonored because of defective title. So in both the cases, a letter is obtained by the bank from the person who is presenting the check. In the first case, the person presenting the check is obtaining the money on the check before it is time for realization. And in the second situation, the bank is obtaining a letter from the presenter because the bank is suspecting that in case of defective title, the instrument can get dishonored, and therefore a letter is obtained which clearly mentions that the presenter shall be paying back to the bank the amount which is collected on the instrument if subsequently the instrument is dishonored because of a defective title. The third precaution that the bank has to take is that a collecting bank has to take is that the bank should present the check to the paying banker within a reasonable time. Now, what is a reasonable time depends upon the facts and circumstances of the case. Generally speaking, suppose the bank receives a check on a certain day, then the reasonable time within which the check should be presented to the paying banker is the same day or at least the next day. Now, delayed presentation of the check to the paying banker will cause several problems to the collecting bank. So the collecting banker has to ensure that no unnecessary delay is made in sending the check for collection from the paying banker. The fourth precaution that the bank has to take is that if the check is sent for collection and it is dishonored, the collecting banker should send a notice of the dishonor to all endorsers and the drawer of the check so that they may take necessary action on the same. So these are some of the precautions that are to be taken by a bank. Now, if the bank is taking adequate precautions and is diligent in its functioning and is not negligent while collecting the checks, then the bank is provided with statutory protection under the Negotiable Instruments Act 1881. Every bank who is a collecting banker has to get this statutory protection under the law because the bank is collecting on a daily basis a large number of checks on behalf of innumerable customers, and it is impossible for a banker to examine the validity of title of such checks in each case. Therefore, every time that a banker receives a check for collection, it is impossible for the bank to find out whether the check contains a forged endorsement or not. Therefore, the statutory protection is very, very important and should be given to the banker. Now, how is this protection given to the bank? Let us understand this point by point. In the first case, in case of crossed checks. Now, the collecting banker, while collecting checks, should actually pay attention to the fact that he is only collecting checks which are crossed ones. And the check should be crossed either generally or specially before it reaches the banker. Please remember, the check should be crossed generally or specially before it reaches the banker. Now, suppose the check was not crossed at the time it was paid into the bank cannot secure protection by crossing it later. So either the bank itself crosses it or tells the customer or tells the presenter to cross it. the bank will not be entitled to protection. So collecting banker enjoys protection under the Negotiable Instruments Act only in respect of crossed checks. Therefore, they should make it mandatory that the check is crossed by the presenter of the check. If the bank does not take recognition of this fact or is negligent about this and collects an open check, then the bank can be held liable for conversion and then will be made responsible to pay the money of the check to the true owner if the customer has got or the presenter has got a bad title or a difficult title thereto. So I have already explained to you what is conversion, but since this word is coming here once again, I'll go into the explanation. So I again repeat before going into the meaning of conversion that if the bank collects an open check, that is an uncrossed check, then the bank will be held liable for conversion and then becomes responsible to pay the amount of the check to the true owner in case the presenter had no title or had a difficult title to the instrument. Now let's understand about conversion. So long as the bank is collecting the amount of the check in good faith and without negligence, then the bank is not made liable to pay the amount of the check. But failure to act with carefully can make the collecting banker liable for charges of conversion to a third party who is the true owner of the check. Now, the Negotiable Instruments Act 1881 clearly mentions that conversion is a civil wrong. That means it's a civil offense which is opposite to that of a criminal offense. It's a civil offense and it consists of interfering with the rights of another person. So conversion is said to be committed where a person dealing with the property of another denies the owner's title and the right to possess the property. In simple words, conversion means wrongfully interfering with the rights of the true owner of the property. Now you might say that bank has not done it deliberately and they have not taken this property for their own benefit, and in fact they have given the money of the check to someone else. Even if the bank has not taken the money of the check for their own benefit and they have paid the presenter of the check the money, still the bank can be held responsible for conversion, which is wrongful interference with the rights of the true owner of the property. So conversion in very simple words means wrongfully interfering with the rights of the true owner of the property. So if the bank has taken an open check and given the money on the check without getting the check crossed, then the bank can be held liable for conversion. Now let me explain the meaning of conversion with a small example. Let's say there is one Mr. A, one Mr. B and one Mr. C, and A leaves his car with Mr. B for safe custody. B gives this vehicle to C and then C meets with an accident. Now A can sue B for the value of the car because B has committed something wrong by giving the vehicle to C. So B becomes liable for conversion because he has interfered with the rights of the true owner of the property. So therefore the courts say that a banker collects for a person the amount of check or bill that belongs to someone else, and so the bank can be made liable for the loss suffered by the owner of the instrument. So in banking practice, the question of conversion arises where the customer or the presenter has got the check from the drawer or holder by fraud or theft and then gives it to the bank for realization. So In such cases, the collecting bankers are charged of having committed the wrong of conversion and therefore will be made accountable to the true owner. The true owner has only to prove that the customer or the presenter of the instrument on whose behalf the collecting bank was acting was not the true owner and had no right to receive the payment in respect of the check. So I hope now this is clear to all of you what is the meaning of conversion. You can get this as a question, a short note question for 6 marks or 14 marks. So let's move on to the statutory protection, and the first one was I spoke to you about cross checks, and I said to avoid this problem of conversion, the bank has to ensure that the checks that they receive for collection is all crossed, and the crossing should be done before the payment is made and not afterwards, because if it is done afterwards, the bank cannot claim protection under the Negotiable Instrument Act. The second protection given to the collecting banker is that the person who presented the check must be a customer. The banker can claim protection only with respect to checks which are collected for their own customers. Please understand the statutory protection given under Section 131 of the Negotiable Instruments Act 1881 is not unconditional. It carries certain conditions. So banker has to be keeping this in mind while dealing with the people who come to its branch. The third protection that the bank gets is he gets protection if he has received the payment, the bank has received the payment in capacity as agent of the customer. I spoke to you about agent of the customer. When bank just collects the check on behalf of the customer and then passes it on to the paying banker without taking any personal interest, or does not become a holder for value, then the bank gets protection under Section 131 of Negotiable Instruments Act 1881. So till now I have discussed with you that banks should ensure that the checks that they collect are cross checks. The bank should ensure that they collect the checks only with respect to customers. The third one is the bank should receive the payment in their capacity as agent of customers, which gives them more protection rather than in their capacity as holder for value. The fourth situation under which protection can be granted to a collecting banker is about the receipt of payment. The protection which is given under the Negotiable Instrument Act is only limited to the receipt of payment which takes place at the time of clearing of the check, which means that only for the amount that is credited in the books, that only for that amount the bank receives protection. The collecting banker does not lose the statutory protection if he credits his customer's account with the amount of the check before its actual realization, but the customer is allowed to draw the amount only after its realization. So the protection is given only with respect to the amount which is credited in the books of the central bank. And the fifth point is that the banker should have acted in good faith and without negligence. This is a very important requirement for availing statutory protection. If the banker has received the payment in good faith, that is without being negligent and with good intentions, then the banker gets the protection. But if the bank has been negligent or has not taken adequate care while dealing with the presenters or the customers of the bank, then the bank cannot be given protection under Section 131 of the Negotiable Instruments Act 1881. Now, how do you prove and who should prove that the act was done in good faith and there was no negligence on the part of the banker. In order to claim this protection, the banker himself has to prove that his actions were done in good faith and there was no negligence on his part while dealing with his functions as a collecting banker. Now, negligence essentially means not taking adequate care. So let's discuss a few examples of negligence. Now there's a very thin line of difference between what is negligence and what is accepted actions. So let us, based on certain examples, let us understand when a collecting banker can lose their statutory protection on the grounds of negligence. Now, here are some situations where the banks can lose their statutory protection because of negligence. First one is while opening an account without obtaining references. So you have already studied that it is customary for banks to open bank account for their prospective customers by getting an introduction. So either an introduction can be got by a neighbor, relative or friend, or the bank should get all the documentation properly so as to understand the credentials of the person who is opening an account with the bank. So if the bank performs any failure to obtain proper introduction while opening an account for a new customer, this would amount to negligence. In such cases, then the bank cannot claim protection under Section 131 of Negotiable Instruments Act 1881. The second situation where negligence can be accorded to banks is if the bank has failed to inquire into the change of operations in an account which are of unusual nature. So banks generally have an idea about what kind of transactions their customers carries out based on the credentials that is given to the bank. So when the bank finds that suddenly there is a huge difference in the operations of the customer's account, they should pay a little attention to it and try to probe and find out how suddenly there is so much of difference in the operations of that account. For example, a small trader who was putting in very small amount of money into his account for a considerable amount for a considerable period of time, when suddenly into his account a huge amount of money has been deposited, now this should cause the bank to raise suspicion about where the money has come from. The bank should inquire into the circumstances surrounding the operations of that account which are of an unusual nature. But if based on the background of the customer, if the customer was handling huge amounts of money because of his scale of business operations, then there is nothing unusual about his transactions if it's of a bigger amount. But a small trader suddenly getting large sums of money into his account should raise the suspicion in the minds of the banker. If the bank has failed to inquire into such operations, then the bank is attributed as being negligent. Now the third situation is where the bank is collecting third-party checks. There we can attribute negligence on the part of the bank if the bank has not taken adequate precautions. Let's take an example for this. There is a marketing manager and the marketing manager requests the bank to credit the amount of the check which is collected for his company, that is the marketing manager's company, and the marketing manager is asking the bank to credit the amount of the check to the marketing manager's personal account. Now here the bank should have inquired about why the check should be deposited into the marketing manager's personal account instead of the company's account. So wherever the bank suspects some kind of fraudulent action by the customers, or he suspects foul play, he should immediately inform the concerned authorities, and he should inform the account holder also, on whose behalf the marketing manager is acting. So obviously in that bank there were two accounts. One was the personal account of the marketing manager, and the company was also having an account with the bank. If the bank has not informed the company and inquired from the company whether the marketing manager was authorized to receive the amount of the check, then the bank can be held liable to compensate the company for any loss or damage which would have occurred because of the bank's action. So this is when the bank is collecting third party checks. That means in this particular case, the bank is collecting the check from the marketing manager on behalf of an organization or a joint stock company. The fourth situation or example where we can attribute negligence on the part of the banker is where the significance of crossing is not given so much importance by the bank. If the check is crossed to some bank other than to himself, the bank should refuse to collect it. For example, if Mr. A has got two bank accounts, one is in Kerala and one is in Bangalore, and A gets a check which is payable through the Bangalore account, he cannot collect the proceeds of the check through the bank account in Kerala. So therefore, banks have to pay attention to the crossing. What is the meaning of the crossing? What is general crossing? What is special crossing? What is double crossing, and so on. The fifth situation is where the bank is careless about account payee crossing. Account payee crossing is a crossing which is done directing the collecting banker that the drawer wants to pay the particular amount of the check into the account of the payee, directly into the account of the payee. Thereafter, the payee has to withdraw the money either by using a withdrawal slip or by using a check. Now, this account payee crossing has a specific direction to the collecting bank that the drawer wants to pay the particular check into the bank account of the payee. Now, if the collecting bank disregards this direction, then the bank is deprived of the statutory protection on grounds of negligence. The sixth situation can be where there is absence of proper enquiries done by the bank. The collecting bank has to make enquiries about the checks and the underlying transaction in order to protect themselves against negligence. So whenever a collecting banker receives a check, they have to inquire about the source from where the check has been received, the amount of the check, the history of the account in which the check is paid in, the previous history of the customer, the relationship between the customer and the drawer. So such few probes have to be made, investigation has to be made when the banker is collecting the check. So if the banker takes into consideration almost all of these 6 points, the banker is sure to get protection under section 131 of the Negotiable Instruments Act. Apart from it, the bank also has got certain duties to be carried out on behalf of the customer. So what I discussed with you just now were certain examples of negligence because of which the bank cannot get protection under the won't get the statutory protection under section 131 of the Negotiable Instruments Act 1881. So now when we talk about negligence by the bank, one must understand what is this negligence. Negligence refers to reasonable care or reasonable diligence which should be exercised by the bank. Now this Diligence and care should not be something which is nobody is asking for too much of perfection or too much of care from the banker, but a reasonable amount of care which one can expect from people of ordinary intelligence or prudence is what is regarded as diligence. So now you know that collecting banker is like any other agent. The collecting banker also is an agent for the principal or for the customer. So therefore they have to discharge their duties. The bank has to discharge their duties with ordinary skill and reasonable intelligence. So what is the duty of a collecting bank to the customer? First and foremost, the bank should present the instrument within a reasonable period of time. The collecting banker, as and when they receive the check from the presenter, they have to keep a trace of the check. Keeping trace of the check means keeping a trace of the checks right from presentation till the time of the payment. The banker is under an obligation to present the checks to the drawee bank within a reasonable time, which means at the earliest possible time. So the collecting banker is under an obligation to present the checks to the drawee bank, which is the paying bank, within a reasonable time, which is the earliest possible time. Some time limit shall be available for presentation after receiving by the collecting banker. Even when the checks are forwarded to another branch of the collecting bank or to an agent of the bank, some time limit shall be given to the collecting banker. Now, as per previously decided cases, what is this reasonable time? Presenting the check within 1 day after it is received by the collecting banker, where the check has been drawn on the bank itself and the collecting and the drawee banks are both locally situated, is called as a reasonable time. So if the collecting and drawee banks are both locally situated and the check is drawn on such bank, then the check can be presented for payment within 1 day of its receipt. Otherwise, forwarding or presenting it on a day following the receipt shall be regarded as reasonable time. So that means where the check is drawn on a bank which is in another place, the collecting banker can forward the check or present it on a day subsequent to the day on which it is received. Thus, in both cases, the presentation or forwarding must normally be taken on the day after the instrument is received. After the expiry of reasonable time, the customer paying the check for collection is entitled to presume that the check has been collected and the amount has been credited to his account. So therefore, the customer can then draw check for an amount not exceeding the amount to be collected after the expiry of such reasonable time. If the bank has failed to collect the check in the meanwhile, it cannot dishonor the check on the ground of shortage of funds, because there would not have been any shortage had the bank performed its duty of collecting the check on time. I hope all of you have understood this. If the branches of the bank are locally situated, that means the collecting bank and the paying bank are all locally situated and the check is drawn on such a drawee bank, then the bank can present the check for payment either on the same day or on the next day. Suppose the collecting bank and the paying bank are situated in two different places very far off from one another and the check is drawn on the drawee bank, the check can be presented for payment by the collecting bank either on the same day or on the next day. Now, This is regarded as reasonable time, and local checks are generally cleared within 3 working days, whereas it might take around 15 days approximately for outstation checks to be cleared. Now, what the customer presumes is that when they have deposited the check with the collecting banker, the check is going to be cleared within a reasonable amount of time. So, if they have to make payment to someone else, they may write a check and give it to someone, thinking that this customer will think that the money that they were supposed to receive has been credited into their account. Now, suppose the collecting bank has not done their duty of presenting the check within a reasonable time, and when the customer's creditor tries to encash the check and there is no money in the account, then the bank shall be held liable for not performing its duty of collecting the check on time. So, therefore, this should be very carefully considered and given a lot of importance. This is one of the most important duty of a collecting banker, that is they have to present the check to the payee bank or to the drawee bank and see that the amount of the check is credited into the customer's account within time, so that the customer can carry out their usual operations without facing shortage of funds in the account. And the second important duty that the collecting banker has got is serving notice of dishonor. If the checks which are presented for collection is dishonored, which means that there is no payment made by the drawee or payee bank, the collecting banker should accordingly give notice of the dishonor to the customer. The bank conveys the notice of dishonor by returning the check along with the return memo and marking the item with a tick mark as the reason for dishonor. The banks have got a list of reasons for dishonoring of check. So appropriately a tick mark is put on the condition or the reason for dishonor. So the bank returns back the check along with a return memo and marks the item with a tick mark as the reason for dishonor. The bank can also debit the customer with the amount of check if it is credited to the customer's account prior to collection. As I told you before, that if the bank has purchased the check at a discounted value, or the bank has paid the value of the check to the customer before the realization of the check, then in that case the bank can debit the customer's account with the amount of check if it is credited to the customer's account prior to collection. If the bank has collected the check as an agent for collection, then the banker serves the notice to the customer that the check has been dishonored, and that is enough to be regarded as the bank's duty towards the customer. And thereafter it is for the customer to send the notices to the other parties of the instrument. So in today's video, now I have discussed with you so far about what is meant by banker as an agent for collection and banker as a holder for value. I have also explained to you the meaning of conversion along with examples. I have explained to you about the statutory protection given to a collecting banker, and this I have discussed with you under 6 points. Sorry, I have discussed with you under 5 points, and thereafter I have explained to you what is meant by negligence and how banks can be held responsible for being negligent, and based on case studies what are the situations in which the banks can be regarded to be negligent. Thereafter I have spoken to you about the duties of a collecting banker to the customer and the two important duties that the collecting banker has got towards the customer. Now let me wind up this discussion with a again simple explanation about the clearinghouse. This I have already spoken to you in the previous video, but I thought I will come up with again a simplified explanation to this. So generally, clearing house refers to the settlement banks, which are the Reserve Bank of India or the State Bank of India. And every day in a particular city, in a particular area, there is a voluntary association of bankers who comes together for the purpose of clearing of checks. So whatever checks are received by the collecting banker, those checks are given to the drawee bank or to the paying bank by the collecting banker. And when the checks are received, uh, when the checks are received by say for example a bank A from other banks, then they call it as in clearing. And when bank A gives his checks to the other banks, for them it is called as out clearing. Repeat this again. If bank A is receiving a check from bank X or bank Y, bank Z, then for him the checks that are received are his in clearing checks. And the checks given by bank A to the other banks, like say for example to bank P, bank Q, bank X and so on, are called his out clearing checks. At the end of the day, the difference between the in and out clearing is the amount which is required to be paid by each bank. So you have representatives of various banks coming to the clearing house, which is generally the RBI or the State Bank of India branch in a particular area. And these representatives or clearing house, they either give their checks to other banks to get the clearances done, or they receive checks from other banks, and the in clearing and out clearing checks are then cleared amongst themselves, and the amount is paid to each bank accordingly. Now when the balance is due to be paid, that is against a bank, the bank transfers the amount due from its account maintained with the clearing bank, which is the Reserve Bank of India or the State Bank of India. With this, I come to an end of my discussion on collecting banker. I hope you have understood these concepts very clearly. What is the duty of the collecting banker? What is the role of the collecting banker? And how the bank acts as agent for collection of money as well as collection of check. How the bank collects the check as a holder for value or purchases a check of the account holder before its realization. What is the statutory protection which is given to the bank, and what are the duties of the bank? What are the rights of a bank as a holder for value? What are the duties of a bank as a, or liabilities of a bank as a holder for value? What is the meaning of conversion? What is the meaning of being negligent? What is a clearing house and how is the amount on the checks cleared? What is out clearing of check? What is in clearing of check? And so on. If you are finding anything, if you are still finding it difficult, please feel free to contact me at the email ID which I have been always telling, Geeta_Ashok. It is spelled as GEETA_ASHOK@rediffmail.com. So with this, I wind up my discussion on collecting banker. I will discuss in the next video about the paying banker. See you there.